Welcome to the Grace Space, a transmission for the sovereign soul.
Yes. The shadow is, this is how I had the thought the other day. The shadow is not something to fear. The shadow is a place for you to learn. Um, fear, the whole like construct of like 5D is love, 3D is fear, God is love, the devil is fear, but all things exist within the eternal law of one. The darkness, the shadow, the evil, what's hard to look at, that is a tool. And the better that you are able to navigate that part of your own self-exploration, um, go into those spaces, the stronger of an initiate, of a spiritual grid worker, of being in alignment with your purpose you're going to be. Like that's something you should look at it and want to tackle that. You should not be afraid of it. You should not be afraid of the things you fear. You can be afraid of the things you fear, but um rise to the challenge to meet those fears and work within fear and use fear as one of your greatest teachers.
Hey everyone, real quick before we begin, if this content matters to you, you're warmly invited to subscribe to this channel, to like this video, to leave a comment, or all three. I read all the comments, and your engagement is really important because when you engage, it tells YouTube to push this content out to more people who would find value in it. Now that I understand this, I engage a lot more with the channels that are important to me because I know it really matters. Thanks for listening. Here we go. Hey, welcome back to the Gray Space, everybody. My guest today is Indigo Angel. Indy is a planetary grid reader, a psychic seer. She is chosen by the Guardian Alliance, what she calls the Guardian Alliance, to do this kind of work on our planet. She's a researcher too, and she is an author whose work explores everything from stargates and ley lines to galactic history and planetary consciousness and the reclamation of the human template. Um, Now, there are moments in this conversation when Indy's cosmology stretches far beyond anything that I can easily place into familiar categories. She has a level of intellectual brilliance that knocked my socks off. And what I do when I listen to her is just let it move through me because I can feel the truth of it. So, her map of reality is so vast and intricate and unapologetically multidimensional. It gives me a glimpse into where we're heading. Uh, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her into the gray space. The other reason is we live in the same town. I was so blown away when I realized that we're practically neighbors. Anyhow, beneath the language of portals and guardians and timelines and planetary grids, um, is something so deeply human. And this conversation is really about awakening, like so many conversations in the grace space. It's about what happens when you realize that you've been living inside a story that is way too small to contain who you really are. It's about healing inherited wounds, trusting your own perception, reclaiming your relationship with the earth, finding the courage to stand in your authentic nature, even when nobody around you understands what you're seeing. And I think that Indy really gives us an amazing example of the courage to do that. So whether you resonate with her framework literally, symbolically, or somewhere in between, I just invite you to listen with curiosity and let it move through you. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, as usual, and Above all, stay open to the possibility that reality may be far stranger and far more beautiful than we have been taught. Please enjoy this conversation with Indigo Angel. So, Indy, can I ask, how did you get to where you are now? Like, who were you before Indigo Angel?
That's okay. We're going way back. Who was I before Indigo Angel? Um, Career-wise, I was a dental assistant. I entered into the dental field when I was about 20, and I did that for about 10 years. I do feel like working in the dental field definitely sharpened my attention to detail, and it also sharpened my um, love for cartography and charting and things like this, a skill that I bring with me into who I am today. But I was a young mom, and I think that I struggled just like everybody else with dealing with trauma, dealing with maternal and paternal degradation in my bloodline and my lineage. I would say that I experienced the level of trauma that like the natives experienced, honestly, with what came through my family line and my bloodline, with really, really wounding the feminine body, right? There's so much Black Madonna, there's so much that really came against us through forced breeder programs and things like this that everything I feel like I was just born through like I was born into a nest that was like broken and like missing parts of it and like there was holes in the nest. I'm just like coming into the world like where's my mother? Like, okay, there's nobody here to take care of me. Just try to fly, and try to feed yourself. So I- it was just crazy, right? And this catapulted me into a life of definitely suffering, addiction, um, just everything you can think of that I had to overcome. And I had a huge awakening, just like everybody else. I would say my awakening happened in 2012, 2013. And what I realized what was happening to me is I was never listening to myself. I was never listening to my body. And I was never listening to how sensitive I was because I am truly an HSP, a highly sensitive person. I was born with psychic abilities. I could see light beings, I could see angels, I could see demonic forces as a child. Um, I worked with who I know to be the guardians now as a child, but I didn't know that. I just called them like the beings in the sky that would like interact with me. And I carried all that with me, but then as I got older, it was just all this darkness of not being able to nurture my soul, and then falling into these really bad life paths. Like, yes, I did the dental assisting, but I also walked some pretty crazy path work that I've never spoken about before as well, and ended up in some pretty crazy, risky situations and things like this. So I had a lot to overcome. And my awakening was just so profound because it was very physical for me. Um, and maybe this is why awakening isn't as powerful for some people. I've noticed because some people don't have physical body ascension. For me, it was about survival because my body was going through so much transformation through my awakening that my body dictated who I was supposed to become. A lot of sickness, a lot of having to overcome just death and toxicity inside myself, and having multiple near-death experiences as well. All the way to what we discussed coming into this, where I was talking about my gallbladder and like you watching my story about that. So health has always been something that has been difficult for me trying to overcome. And that just catapults the ascension process because it's like you don't have any choice but to be super real with yourself and to uh, identify the shifts and changes that you have to make within your own consciousness to get to the next level and phases of who you're supposed to become. So my angelic identity started rapidly revealing itself to me. I remember in the beginning of my ascension, I would hold crystals, and it was so powerful to me because my body was so holographic. My blood was essentially illuminated, like it was glowing. I mean, if you could take one of those lights to me where you could see, I could have promised you that my blood was glowing. Like there was things happening to me that was making it so my spirit, could easily come in and out of my body, all kinds of things. Um, and so I remember holding a crystal one day, and I left my body for what felt like hours. And this was at the beginning of my ascension. That's when I realized that the ascension process was physical, was the experience was so real that I mean, it felt like I was in eternal time for hundreds of years, and then come back to my body. Like, I mean, I was like in my car for like 6 hours holding a crystal and basically like went in and out of consciousness. Those type of things were happening to me all the time, where I was like losing time. So what eventually happened was in about, I would say 2016. At this point, to what family that I had that still actually talked to me, because I was very rapidly becoming like the super ultra crazy person that like couldn't even people didn't even want to like approach me, because like the things I would say would be so bizarre, right? Like Ascension taking you into this bizarre place. What happened was is I started to be contacted by races from the Guardian Nations. 2016 to 2019, I had lots of contact with the Lyran councils. They would actually come to me as light elementals, and they came in with me to help me rehabilitate my 12th dimensional light body and to like teach me how to work within consciousness expansion and really upgrade me through light and sound, upgrade me through language. And so what was when I worked with the Lyrans is when I really went through a huge healing portion of my journey. And they are the ones that I feel like ultimately kind of laid the groundwork for where I was going and who I was meant to become today, and also my guardian ambassadorship that I was ultimately going to take. But, a lot of things happen in between, but that was kind of the beginning of all of it, I would say.
I love, wow, we are done. We just dove right in
Where did
to
we
the
just
deep
go?
end. And I love it. I love it. So, okay, let me, what you're describing, I mean, now that you're talking about it, it was in the past as just, a natural process that you went through, probably sounds so far out to many people. But when you talk about the Lyrans and the Guardians and being an ambassador for that, you speak about it quite casually, because I think because you've integrated so much of it. But was there ever a point, I mean, when did you first realize that you were perceiving reality differently from most of the people around you? I mean, a lot of people who are super psychic and born with those gifts just assume everybody else is the same way until they realize at some point, like, oh, wait a second, they don't see what I'm seeing. I'm different, Like
Yeah.
how did that evolve for you in your normal? When did you realize, wait a second, I'm not like everybody else?
Definitely as a child, because there were things that were happening to me that I realized other people weren't experiencing, such as the fact that I could just like sit at a park and I could look at each person and I could know like what they were dealing with, what ailments they would have, where their body was hurting, what sicknesses they had. Because as a child, I would just develop them as sicknesses. So it's like I was sick all the time. I was always going to the doctor, being taken for things. This, I think, ties into abduction experiences that I happened to me. Um, that I didn't know any of these things were going on, right? Because I didn't get like some of these memories till I got older. But yeah, as a child, you just know. And I also understood that many adults were not able to communicate at the level that I was able to communicate. I would know by the way I would ask them questions. They couldn't respond. They couldn't actually find answers that I knew had deeper depth to them, that they were giving me very like shallow, answers to things that they weren't able to explore depth within themselves. I just knew immediately. But, what good does that gift do for you when you're existing in a world where nobody can reciprocate what you're perceiving, right? So I think this is what brings on the dark night of the soul. This is what starts to shut you down because you start to say, F it, these gifts don't matter. The abilities don't matter because, like, I can't use them. I don't know how to use them. I don't know how to find resonance or alignment. And because you don't have the reflection, it shuts that down. So it's definitely a story of overcoming, right? And like redemption and like again, listening to yourself, finding those gifts. How do I work with these gifts? Like, how do I apply this? How do I stand in my own authenticity with these abilities without ever having any sort of validation or acknowledgement from anyone else? That was a culmination point for me in my awakening that was so significant. And then not only, having that, but then you have to realize that I have to actually be this person. I have to be this person against your own family that's going to sit there and be like, no, you're not that person. You know what I mean? Um, when you come from these really degraded bloodlines, right, that have been through a lot of trauma, like they're carrying all the like prey versus predator programs. They're carrying all of the colonizer wounds and like the real separation of tribal wounds of family lines. Like when you're carrying all that, you're existing within a unit of people that it is to destroy you. So then there's this other level of like having to build yourself. It's like, no, I'm this person. I'm standing in my abilities. I'm standing in my gifts against the only people that could ever give you that reflection, but they can't give you that reflection. So you shed these layers, you shed these identities, you shed these attachments to programs and concepts and realities and social programming. And you just shed layers, shed layers, shed layers, shed layers until you get to a place of existence where you just don't even have any identity at all.
Yeah.
That's your true ultimate state of existing. It's ultimate oneness. But then, we build the identities again to help navigate through this realm in which we're trying to teach and serve to everyone who now works with us, watches us, incorporates this within themselves, because we are finding unity within our knowledge, within our starseed identities, within our gamma indigo types and our indigo grail lines, and um, the evolution of what we're becoming. Um, so and what we're serving in our purpose. This all has transformed so infinitely within myself. But one thing I do know is that I've come back to a framework of understanding within it all that is allowing me to continue my work at a new level of restoration and resurrection within myself. So just like when you asked me when you first came in, like, what is your name? Should I call you Amanda or should I call you Indy? It's like when you say Amanda, that feels like planetary incarnations, like long ago. You know what I mean? Like old Earth systems, like old parallel life, like um soul oppression, like someone who's really stuck somewhere. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like I need to do like some resurrection to like that energy or just open up that streamline. But ultimately, I don't even carry that into the new cycles of what I'm becoming, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I love how beautifully you're describing the journey that all souls have to take, really. I mean, it sounds like, yours has been very compressed and very advanced because you came in like, with all of this power into, as you say, a bloodline, a degraded bloodline, so you have all of that to push against, but
Mhm.
also, to illuminate, right? And it's going to force you to define yourself as different from your bloodline, but then ultimately let go of that definition because you merge with the oneness. But then you realize, well, and it's this, isn't it? Because then, because we live in a body and we live in this world and we interact, we have an identity, and
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that, but I guess it's our degree of attachment to a limitation, that we're playing with, right? So what I'm hearing
Yes.
and what I'm really loving is your courage in standing, stepping up into accepting the mission, right? Because you could have said no. I mean, like, it must be challenging. I don't know. Well, you tell me. Is it challenging to, on the one hand, you leave your body, you are in, you're very you're living very much on the multidimensional level. You're very aware of all of these other dimensional levels of your being. You're interacting with beings that most people can't see. You're interacting with councils. You're accepting responsibility on an architectural, cosmic architectural level. And you also wake up in the morning, you've got a family, you have children, or you have a child, you have to, you got to do the laundry, you got to do dishes, you got to do all of the ordinary stuff, I mean, like after the
Yes,
ecstasy, the laundry, that whole thing. But like, do you ever find it challenging to balance all the different aspects of your nature?
absolutely, 100%. Yes, because the 3D is actually very difficult for me. I struggle ridiculously in the 3D. Just as you see in my camping video, like floating down the river, like, you know, just getting all the camping gear and equipment, the things that you need, and then like the food, like the planning, like the processes of 3D and like actually going through that when you're constantly functioning at a multi-dimensional level, that can become a little bit difficult because it's almost like your brain is like a little bit ADHD, right? It's like you are nurturing like many different perceptions, many different windows, many different remote views simultaneously. However your brain wants to compartmentalize those experiences. But yeah, you are consciously aware of taking in a lot of information simultaneously. So the good way to go about that is to just try to seal those things off if you're needing to focus, right? Because if you got to get from point A to point B, it doesn't do you any good to sit there and be trying to communicate and allow those things to come in. Do they come in where you're trying to navigate the 3D? Sometimes, yes, but I try to just make time and space for that within myself. Have my own sacred protocols, meditation, my own personal grid work, my own personal assignments. Really, it's about divine communion with Source at the end of the day. And listening to the internal commandments with Source and divine alignment with that only then allows more mission work to come to you because you are proving almost that you will listen to commands within yourself
Mm.
because the Guardian Alliance is really based off of all of the divine Christos Sophia races that are aligned with the eternal source. So, you know, if you are communicating with beings that are from these higher dimensional races and nations that have taken these covenants and they're communicating something to you, I mean, you can take that as information, you can take that and apply it however you want. But if you are in alignment with the planetary restoration goals, which I am ultimately, um, I sometimes take those things as commandments because if they have things to bring through to me, they're going to just imprint the vision into me. Um, and then it's kind of up me to decode that somewhat and then deliver those messages, so to speak. I find myself at the head of information that's coming in terms of global restoration. So it's always like the current events and the current alignments and 360-degree awareness of things that are occurring across the planetary globe and grid because they are the underlying messages to where the guardians are next positioning themselves to ultimately help humanity with the next course corrections because these nations and races are committed to rehabilitation of the planetary body, like the defense systems and the divine governance of not just this harmonic universe, but all five harmonic universal sectors in the galaxy. So there's
Wow.
a lot that's going on with these alliances. Um,
Can,
but
can
there's only so much that's relative to humanity here on Earth. Um,
can you talk about the Guardians? Who do you understand the Guardians to be? How can you explain that to somebody who's hearing that term for the first time?
Yeah, well, I explain it as they are a Supreme Interdimensional Council of Christos Sophia aligned nations. that are in service to the eternal law of one. Now, some people have tried to debunk the eternal law of one. Someone came at me with something the other day saying the eternal law of one is like, they tried to basically say something against the raw materials and things like this. But essentially, I think that's BS because I mean, if you even just think about it, right? Like the law of one, okay, all living beings, no matter like what dimensional spectrum they're in, like they need the dimensional spectrum of creation to exist, period. All living beings are breathing the same air. We all need the same things, water, right? That in itself is proof and verification that the eternal law of one is real. Okay, so I just want to say that first and foremost because I don't like when people try to like bring that stuff to me because it just feels so demonic and satanic.
Hmm.
But basically the Guardian Alliance, it functions as the cosmic administrative body that governs restoration, it governs defense, and it governs ascension of this planetary system. And the main command station for that is in Mintaka. It is in the Orion system. And within the Orion system, it contains like a cosmic nucleus of the solar Christic restoration timeline protocols on the Earth. And this functions from the Emerald Founder's oversights. Um, it comprises of orders of divine service, like many angelic lineages. The Elohai, the Seraphi, um, the preserved and original Melchizedek Council orders that um, come from the original creation sets from specific stargates. It pertains to many of the guardian nations, such as the original Ryans, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Venusians are a part of this. Um, Cygnusians, the Hydrants. There's many unseen nations that are a part of the Guardian Alliance. It also contains Earth spirits, and it also functions through emissaries like angelic humans, like starseeds and grid keepers, and people who hold the active DNA templates to take contracts for reclamation of the Earth. So it's basically a governing administrative body that's managed by divine alignment. That's what it is.
I
So
love that.
yeah, it's a frequency field, basically, of governance.
So there, yes, I mean, and just for us to get our minds around. Now, I know that a lot of what you just said probably went over a lot of people's heads, and that's okay, guys, because when Indy speaks, there are codes, right? Codes are coming out. Take what resonates, let it move through you, and don't worry about trying to understand every single thing. I highly recommend her book, your first book, because you've got
And
two.
let me put it in perspective for you. Sometimes when I speak, sometimes that happens to me as well. I'm speaking and I'm not entirely like, do you know what I mean? It's almost like sometimes the speaking is channeling in itself. And then sometimes I even go back, and that's what's so amazing. Like, I think even why I have my channel in the first place, because I will go back and watch my own videos and be like, what did I just say? And then I have to reintegrate what I said because it is so much. But so it's hard to explain exactly always what's happening while that's happening. But just know that sometimes it doesn't always feel like it feels like I'm opening up channels for information to come through is what it feels like.
Yes. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like to me too. And can I bring it back to what you said, the word that was used a few times, which was reclamation, reclamation of the earth, reclamation of the earth. And I think maybe, this is an important idea to seed for people who are encountering this kind of information for the first time, is that we are in a process of reclamation. And that means that the earth has been under control, has
Mhm.
been under imposition by forces that have sought to extract and harvest from her not only the planetary body of the earth, but who she is, her essence. And you mentioned the Christosophia lines. And
Mhm.
this is something that I talk about from time to time, not in any great detail, but this to me, this is about the relationship between the earth and the sun and the human and who the humans are, who we are. and what our purpose is here. We are in a process of reclamation. We are reclaiming our planet. We're reclaiming ourselves. We're reclaiming our memory. We're reclaiming our organic templates, I guess we could say, right? And so I would love to hear you talk more about why we're in a process of reclamation. We are missing so much of our history.
Mm.
We have been essentially taught nothing, and what we have been taught has been largely distorted. So, I compare this to being like, imagine like being born into the last 10 pages of a book that's millions of pages long, and you don't have
Yeah.
any context for understanding. This is normal to you. This is how you live, but a lot of people are going to be like, wait, 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 what? So, can you just give us a thumbnail sketch, if you can, of what's going on here?
The planet is weaponized and booby-trapped, and it has been for a very, very long time on this Earth. Um, it's definitely the tale of light versus dark. In the beginning, that wasn't the intention for humanity. Um, in the beginning, that there were definitely primordial spirits and primordial feminine councils that actually came here, and they kind of created um, the Stargates. They created the race morphogenetic field. They created the portals. They created the core of the planet, the spiritual body of the earth. They were a part of this great unfolding of the human angelic body that existed here on the planet. But what happened throughout our galactic history, this is what's ultimately withheld from us, is that we have a galactic history. When you're like, our history, we don't know, this, all of our ancient origins have been withheld from us in terms of who are these galactic beings, who are these galactic races, who are these galactic nations that have contributed to who humanity is. Well, and that's a part of the great deception is they don't want us to have our identity. Um, I believe this is all held through AI, Hyperborean AI, that this goes back to Hyperborean AI, and this goes through their databases and their data centers that they've had since the original root race of humanity, which is all that we can recollect really within this great cycle of our existence. But I do think, I mean, that's taking us back at least 550,000 years on this planet, but that this goes much farther than that. But that they keep these genetic libraries within Hyperborean AI data centers. I think the core access point of this is in SS3, which is the Bermuda Triangle, which is, I think, is uh, where they have sub data facilities within Atlantean records, things that are sold within stored within Atlantean records, where they keep the genetic framework of humankind. But this information's locked away. You know, do the 13 bloodlines, the Illuminati bloodlines, do they have access to this? Do the corrupt and rich billionaires on the planet, do they have access to this? Well, yeah, I think so. I think these are the bloodlines that are the descendants of the original invaders on this planet
Mm.
against the original human natives that carried the original angelic soul body blueprint, that they came to this planet, that they raped us, they force bred us, and they mutated us. And ultimately, I think the goal of that was to attain our spiritual power, right? Because a lot of these invader races were inherent to this living earthly system, that the original natives of Earth, the original angelic bodies, that they would have attained the ability to coordinate all access to the stargates, to that living original architecture, to and primordial creation, right? They had the access rights to these things. They have the governance rights to this planet. So how do they gain access to that, right? It is to mate with these types, and it is to merge their bloodline with it so then they can gain access. So, I mean, that's kind of what's happened here. The whole universe is about race domination. It is about survival, survival of the species type things, and everything that we see that is so absurd and just what feels so diabolical and what feels like is victimized this planet has come through the need to obviously uh, gain control over the resources on this earth. So yeah, it came down through honestly the first galactic falls were forced breeder programs. And I feel so crazy to say that sometimes because it's just like, where do I have a reference point for this? But I've talked about this before being where you can see it in history is obviously the giants, the Nephilim Wars, things like this when they came and mated with human women on the earth. This goes back to the Lemurian Holocaust. This goes back to Atlantean Holocaust, all the world wars. It's ultimately over the governance of the resources. And the number one resource on some level is the Stargate system because the Stargates are the override command nodes on the planet where you can gain power, you can gain access to all sorts of timeline dimensions on this planet. You can gain access and control to collective consciousness spheres within the planet. You can actually govern like mental spheres within the earth if you control Stargate regions and things like this. So ultimately, comes back to Stargate Wars.
Mm. So, yes, and I really want to talk about that too as it relates to current events on the world stage. But
Yeah.
I used to not understand. It took me a long time to understand what was meant by Illuminati because I was like, well, they're not illuminated. I'm like, they're not of the light. So why are they called Illuminati? Well, then I realized, oh, we're talking about the false light, and we're talking about the fact that they have a lot more information than anybody else, and so that's how
Right.
they dominate, right?
Right.
They are illuminated in the sense that they have access to a lot of knowledge that has been kept from everybody else, and that's how the few have controlled the many for so long. And I always try to remember the principle when things start to feel too convoluted in my mind, and I'm trying to understand things and put pieces of the puzzle, this infinite puzzle together. I try to come back to basic universal principles like as above, so below, and like look at what's happening to the planet, how things operate on this planet, and realize, okay, we can extrapolate from that and understand that this is not just local to our planet and our planetary
Hmm.
situation. It occurs here because it is occurring at in the nested reality out there, not only in the galaxy but in the multiverse, and that we're part of something that is so vast,
Hmm.
so seemingly infinite, within the false construct, which has been what that part of the universe that has been invaded by this AI that you're describing, which I've only just called the ancient AI. I don't have any. That's just my intuition too, right? But yeah, that there's actually something going on that is such a huge picture, that we haven't been permitted to see, right? And only
Hmm.
people who are super plugged in, like you, and other people that I've had the good fortune to encounter, who are actually able to bring parts of this puzzle back into our collective awareness. But this has been going on
Yeah.
and maybe that is the purpose of the human avatar, our incarnational vessel, and the fractal nature of that vessel, which has the potential to integrate and alchemize all the energy in the universe. And that's why we're so valuable. So you put the most valuable beings, or on the most valuable planet in a way, because we are the fractal, and so we're like the key to everything
Hmm.
here, and who and here, who we are and where we are. And so of course the opposer in this game is going to want to gain control over that. And and I guess we could say has been largely in control of that for longer than anybody has a memory of. Is that accurate in your view?
Yes, I mean this is why if humanity really knew the truth of their ancient origins, I mean, I don't think people feel that are these gatekeepers. They feel that this is why disclosure is coming up the way it is recently. Disclosure has been on the mainstream in a way that I don't think anyone's ever seen before. And we're predicted 2026 to 2027 that we may have full alien declassification that's coming. And that is because we're reaching these ascension biological markers within the planet that ultimately for the human race to be healed, that the reclamation of their human origins actually has to be restored, it actually has to be returned to them. This information isn't gone or lost, it's just withheld. It is held organically in the planetary Akashic records. It is held organically in planetary guardian stargates, and there's actually a structure that looks like the uh it's called like a hypercube, but it's an organic hypercube, and it kind of looks like it's like plasma, and it sustains all of this through the Guardian Stargate networks in specific areas in the planet where it's safeguarded that actually contains the information and the records. Um, but again, these are structures that the normal person, like you said, isn't gonna be able to access or have access to, which you can access it and have access to if you repair your DNA. If you repair it, at least your 12 dimensional avatar body, which is your planetary body, which is where you can start gaining access to the planetary noosphere, which is the planetary mind, and you get initiated to these processes. Your body has to be able to hold the frequency and the quantum energy to be able to sustain access to those things in the first place. So that's why the processes can take a long time to get to that level if that's where you're going.
Well,
So,
and of
sometimes
course,
it's just a simple blockage between your solar plexus and your third eye or something like this. Like it can be that simple. Um, believe it or not.
but I mean that explains why we've been so interfered with too, doesn't it? I mean, like why we're under constant assault with all of these chemtrails and the food and I mean, basically poisoned, cumulatively poisoned over time. And it seems to really
Yeah.
have been intensifying for the last 5, 6 years. It's to keep us from waking up, to keep us from, because actually, and isn't this just part of it's a culmination, it's a convergence that must happen. There's no choice. We don't have a choice in the matter. It's not just us, it's not just the planet, it's the solar system, it's the galaxy, it's the universe. All of these cycles are converging at once.
Mhm.
And so it's inevitable, but there has been a lot of energy aimed to tamp it down, to keep us in ignorance, to try to somehow hijack this convergence that cannot be stopped.
Right, because I mean, all the weapon systems that they're using, I mean, they'll ultimately dissolve in the future timelines. I mean, as Earth sustains more of a higher dimensional Earth vibration, this is all temporary. All of the hijack is temporary. All of the fall is temporary. It's not even real. The fall isn't real. The fall is an implant program that was installed through the Templar systems to ultimately, yeah, keep us suppressed in those records. It's like a huge global crucifixion wound. The crucifixion and the martyrdom implants on this planet are the crux in which withholds the covenant of origin from humanity. That's what the Guardian Alliance wishes to returns to humanity, and will ultimately return the origin, the covenant of origin, which is it's a covenant or a decree to bring back the original records of humanity.
Wow. Okay. So,
Yeah. So
what?
but everything that's dissolving, all of these hard things that are dissolving, all this awareness of the trauma and the pain, the separation, these force breeder programs, whatever it is, the hybridization programs of human species with ETs, right? when that origin record gets returned, then everything can be worked through. Everything can be ultimately settled. All of the karmic debts can be settled. Everything that has to ultimately integrate the bloodlines and dissolve the bloodline wars, the fractures in the bloodline wars, because I mean, ultimately, we know this goes back to the biggest negative ET infliction upon humanity is the Draconian Sumerian Anunnaki bloodline warfare. I mean, this is the largest organization, I guess you could say, lineage that has incurred this infraction upon humanity and is why humanity is ultimately bleeding out at the core of it. I mean, just to put a name on it, right? Like that there's many other races and anything beyond that is just like it's devastating distortion. You know, any sort of hybridizing with negative E2 bloodlines, I mean, it feels so unthinkable, but this is the depth of evil and shadow that we're dealing with here, the level of weaponization that has occurred. But like I said, New Earth, though, this doesn't exist in New Earth, right? Like as we evolve and as we like become into this space where we're reclamating the reclamation that we talked about, the reclamation of the Edenic template will return, where all things in existence restore back to the original body. This is where the eternal law of one comes back in, right? Because that's the confusion within existence itself is the idea of separation. It is the biggest trauma that the soul monadic body of humanity carries. And until we recognize that we cannot evolve the species, this is where I get kind of like hung up because a lot of people will say, well, when I die, I'm going somewhere, I'm not coming back, da 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 da, blah blah blah. I don't think that's really even possible because your soul actually it comes from the earth. I hate to break it to you, but the soul comes from the planet. It actually um, doesn't even leave the earth to go to heaven. I mean, the heavenly it does it will access the higher dimensions of heaven that are within celestial bridges, but that the whole structure is contingent upon the structure within Earth. So you can't really just take a hiatus. Like we are all indebted to the original fractures within the original structures of the soul monadic body of humankind. So we all return to heal that within, and it's like we all will descend when everyone is ready. We all will transcend when everyone is ready. So
So,
this is about seeing the eternal body of existence.
okay. So does that mean that the human race, the original human is original to Earth?
Yes.
So she really is our mother.
Yes.
Yes. Through that Christic Sophianic line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. So we were given a model of Earth. Wow. My mind is just going like this right now, but we were given a model
It
of
is.
Earth.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's like
Oh,
it's amazing.
okay.
I'm just real. No, I mean because the realizations are stacking in me, like the degree to which we have been, lied to, distorted. The image that keeps coming back to my mind is learning about Earth as a child, in books about our world, our planet, our solar system and stuff like that. And the information that the Earth was this, round ball with a crust, and then at the center of it was this iron core, you know, and lots of lava and magma, coming up to the surface. But I mean, that's not that's like a dead model of this planet. She's so much more than that,
Mm.
and she's the planetary expression of a consciousness of the mother. and
Yes.
and
Yes.
within her body, her planetary expression, there are worlds within worlds, and some of them are physical material and some of them are non-physical. You talk about crystalline, you talk about diamond, emerald. You talk about all of these different energies, I guess. And I would love to learn more about the structure. And of course, this is related to the portals, the stargates, the ley lines, the vortexes, all of this stuff, like the planetary architecture, internal architecture. What is this beautiful being that we're living on?
Well, she definitely has many names, and I like to call them planetary saints. You have the solar dragons lineage that I feel like defines this: Mama Tiamat, Tara, Gaia, Pachamama, Iru, Mama Kauai, um, just the serpent body herself. I mean, if you go back to the ancient timelines of Mu, which is considered the motherland, this is where this spirit was able to be the freest, and the beings that existed in Mu were the most connected. And they have something called ancient Nakal tablets, which I do feel like contains the original origin of Earth, like contains her um, records and things like this. But that they said that it was a seven-headed serpent. And really, this was representing the turning of the tectonic plates. And if you think about the nature of the tectonic plates, they're like always consuming themselves, right? They're always like, um, it's like the Ouroboros. Like that is like her true nature. To be self-sustaining, she is auto, there's a name for it. Like auto generative or something. There's like an actual, she is a divine birthing priestess, right? When you think about parthenogenesis, creation, self-replication, things like this, that is like her nature. So,
So this is the toroidal field, right? This is the self-generating, self-sourced field that is constantly renewing itself.
mhm, yes. And it's a holographic Earth, it's a holographic universe. It's sustained by holographic portals, stargates, ley lines, all of the architecture that we've been discussing, that it creates the foundation for what is physical to be sustained within it. So, really, when you're kind of seeing these things, you're just tuning into that holographic world and seeing how it's existing through what is physical, like having almost like X-ray vision, but interpreting that through your psychic senses and things like this. But this is all a part of our earthly spiritual immune system and what actually keeps us alive on the planet. It's what gives way and it's what bends reality. Why timelines always seem so fluid. Why reality seems so fluid. Like some things seem concrete, but most things actually aren't. And why time like shifts and changes and molds all things. It's because it's us adapting to that time space within the holographic nature of the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've
They're called
actually,
timeline dimensional models. It's actually in I wrote like a whole chapter on this in my book, The Guardian Alliance Gridwork and New Earth Prophecy. I talk about how these timeline dimensional models exists through the holographic body, that there's multiple layers, multiple templates of these, multiple timelines of these, um, which timelines in history and humanity, which models are holding up. Like it's a very deep explanation of what that looks like. We have things called divine blueprints as well that uphold the prophecy timelines, the revelational timelines of humanity, and that allow us to continue to have access to future vision and things like this, such as like the Dove light grid, the Lemurian light grid, the Swan light grid. Like these are all connected to the prophecy strongholds on the planet, and which vortices on the earth are sustaining those and keeping those alive within the planet as well. So yeah, this is so big, right? This is so big. It's such a vast, huge world, and it is a lot to take in all at once, but it's important to know, I think, just for the fact that some people that feel like, oh, this world is doomed, all these evil things and these bad things are happening, but really the organic matrix is the strongest matrix on the planet. Everything else that is invading or synthetic, it's just functioning from duplication of that organic structure. So,
Right.
yeah, we have to safeguard what is organic, where we know the organic structures do exist. And right now, there's many portions of the planet right now that are under extreme turmoil and warfare, which um, that's where the Guardians come into play.
Right. So, would it be fair to say that you could compare the organic structure to truth itself, right? Like only truth
Mhm.
is true, and only truth has any real existence, legitimate existence, whereas everything else is overlay or mimicry, synthetic that cannot withstand the light of truth, and ultimately it is going to have to dissolve, and it will leave everything perfect as it in its original state of perfection.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you said that really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in other words, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine, everybody.
It is, but the attention of our awareness is very significant and in our own power as well, and our own contribution to it. That's what we have to recognize. It actually, uh, they don't want us to sit back and do nothing and just wait for things to happen. They want us to be active participants in the planetary ascension process
Right,
because,
because this is not
yeah,
passive, right? Yeah, it is actually
yes,
happening through us and through every realization that we have, through everything that we heal individually because of our fractal nested nature, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that we have a duty and we have a responsibility to do that. If we're doing anything else, honestly, other than mission work, we are actually out of alignment with our true angelic inheritance. We are actually, and as crazy that is to say, as abrupt as that could be for some people that might not like that or want to hear that, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything bad or harmful or wrong, but that it could be the reason why there's some sort of ache inside where you don't feel completely fulfilled on a soul level. And
I
so
think
it's for
that's
every person to really evaluate that within themselves. But yeah,
super, super powerful. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the only reason that we do have that ache and that unfulfillment, even if at first it takes a form of, craving or desire that's coming through the ego, it always has a root much deeper in some kind of soul longing. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. When I was starting because I had a whole different past. I was an actor for 25 years. I was in the
wow,
show business world, and when I shifted into what I do now as a mentor and a guide and all of that, I mean that was the really the focus and the thrust of my work was to help people tune into, well, what is that soul longing? And it was really just a reflection of my own, answering my own call, which I was trying to that mission wanted to emerge, but it was trying to emerge through a template that wasn't going to be able to host it, and so it had to shift. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it may seem like a radical statement, but it is true. If you're not on mission at this time when it is so absolutely necessary, then somehow in your life you're not going to feel like everything is right.
yeah, exactly. And you'll be continually prompted to have to reevaluate that and keep coming back to that and keep coming back to that. I mean, even into like your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, like you will keep coming back to it. Um, because it's the knowing that is there that everyone really needs to listen to that. It's hard to listen to that again because it's like you have to shed layers, you have to shed the programs of social norms and things like this. I mean, you think it's easy for me to come out and be like, "Hey, my name is Indigo Angel. Like this is my angelic identity." Like, yeah, everybody and their mom is looking at me like, who does this lady think she is? You know what I mean? But it's not something to I'm not better than anyone else. It's just that some souls are inherently more destined to um, walk within that higher mission soul path. Everybody ultimately is, right? But again, this is where your hybridization stuff, you got to get a handle on that. Like you got to really break that down within yourself because if you have a high percentage of Anunnaki DNA or reptilian DNA or something like this, like you do have to rehabilitate that DNA
Mm.
because
Okay,
it
so
is considered like fallen DNA technically, or it's carrying the implant system of the fall codes.
right, right. So how would somebody do that? Rehabilitate their DNA?
A lot of work. There's not no one answer. And it's not the same for every person, but it is a lot of work. It's full dedication. It's full dedication. For some, it's just to simply healing. There's many different phases of where someone is within the process, but it's about no longer denying what the soul is desiring. Um, and also placing human desires in submission, and embracing more of a virtuous identity, I guess you could say. Um, but it requires lots of things. I mean, for me, it required a massive amount of clearing my field, 360 degrees, implant removals, things like this. I talk about this. It's definitely a part of like my consistent work within myself, my ethical work, and also the gifts that healing gifts that I bring to other people. But it's what they represent is why those removals are so imperative because it's like a constant declaration that you're removing yourself from known distortions that depress or oppress humanity. So multiple declarations of this, keeping yourself elevated from the artificial matrix, the reversal matrix, the fallen matrix, things like this, so that way you can operate from a place now that you can actually access consciousness even within yourself that allows you to not function with the same limitations.
Mm.
So, yeah,
So it's possible to function as a multidimensional being in this layer.
yeah,
Is that what's meant by being in the world but not of it?
yes, yes, it can be so simple. Yes, right? Like, that's such a beautiful way to say that. Um, yeah.
When we heal something within ourselves, when we do our inner work, let's say when we do our shadow work, does that automatically heal the DNA?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. The shadow this is how I had the thought the other day. The shadow is not something to fear. The shadow is a place for you to learn. Um, fear, the whole like construct of like 5D is love, 3D is fear, God is love, the devil is fear, but all things exist within the eternal law of one. The darkness, the shadow, the evil, what's hard to look at, that is a tool. And the better that you are able to navigate that part of your own self-exploration, um, go into those spaces, the stronger of an initiate, of a spiritual grid worker, of being in alignment with your purpose you're going to be. Like that's something you should look at it and want to tackle that. You should not be afraid of it. You should not be afraid of the things you fear. You can be afraid of the things you fear, but um, rise to the challenge to meet those fears and work within fear and use fear as one of your greatest teachers. That's my advice, that people who are willing to do that, they become the leaders of the world.
The real leaders of the
Yeah.
world, as opposed to the fake leaders
Yeah.
that are up there on the stage.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's trying, right? But some people are wearing masks, some people are super deceptive. Yeah, that's a whole other realm of gameplay, but know who you're dealing with. You
Mm.
know, um, trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, trusting your own psychic senses and knowing. Um, stay in alignment to your that's the most important thing is your inner alignment with source, divine creator. Like that being so strong that it really people can affect you. And yeah, you can get attacked by collective biospiritual weapons and things like this. And yeah, you're going to have to take those hits. Everybody does. But when you stay alignment to your own knowing, your own inner guidance, no one can kind of move you out of alignment to that. That is your protective field. That is your shield. That's your guardian shield. That activates. And as long as you are in that alignment, you're 100% shielded. So it's walking in that grace, walking in that consciousness.
That's so funny because that's what I always sign off these podcasts with walk in grace. That's how I experience it, right? Yeah, that grace is that state of wholeness when you have totally embraced and integrated light and shadow, and
Hmm.
there's no rejection of self in there
Yes.
anymore. And I think this is a real challenge for humans because part of our programming has been to tell us how bad we are, right? How shameful, how sinful, how guilty we should be, how indebted we are, and this has just been to beat down the truth of our nature, and so, for us to for you to what you so beautifully said earlier, like this is me and this is my angelic nature and I'm living my angelic nature. The only reason that somebody would recoil from that is if they feel like, well, how can you say that? Well, that's an indication that there is self-loathing, self-rejection,
Hmm.
when you see it in somebody else and you can't handle it. Because we all, as you said, we all have that within us, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if you chose a bloodline that has a high amount of like draconian or reptilian whatever DNA, and there's programming in there. Well, we come here by agreement. We choose those things for a reason. We're here to overcome, to shine the light through all of that, and we can reprogram ourselves when
Hmm.
we totally embrace everything, right? That's back to the law of one, right? That everything is
Yes.
one. So yeah, I mean, I don't know any better formula than, as you stated, facing your fears, embracing what you're afraid of, and realizing that it's not going to kill you. It actually is going to illuminate your life. I have the proof of that in my own life. You have the proof of that in your own life.
Hmm.
Anybody I've ever talked to who's done that nobody has said, "Oh, it was the worst thing I could have ever." No, everybody says that was the moment where I had to face the thing that I was afraid of. And when I did that and I walked through the fire, then I
Yeah.
was reborn on the other side of that. So we have that capacity.
Well, and when you talk about divine source law, one of the laws, I guess, that is closest to source is the law of wisdom. And to attain wisdom, you have to attain understanding in all things. And that is to understand every element of the self, right? To understand the shadow, to understand what is dark, what is hidden, what is even the ego. Um, this is another whole gimmick in the whole spiritual consciousness community as well, is that we use the ego as a weapon. We use it to hurt people, um, shame people, uh, whatever it is, right? Like that whole thing. But really, to attain the highest wisdom, it's to understand all aspects of the ego and its ultimate function, which it's because it does have good functions as well. It is to protect, it is to serve. Um, it does all kinds of things that you might not be aware of in just your everyday functioning, but that it's not the enemy within
Mhm.
yourself. Um, so yeah, demonizing the self, misunderstanding the self, and this is again, these are all things that will return when the covenant of origin gets returned and all of the bloodline wounds get restored on the planet, because these are all a part of that. Like these simple things that are just essential to healing, right? That this is created to the infiniteness of understanding who we are, which is the ultimate wisdom. So, um,
And that's know
Yeah.
thyself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So everything that seems weird and foreign and out there to us from our perspective of limitation and the deliberate manipulation of our perception to be able to only see a tiny, tiny percentage of the spectrum, it is just how we feel standing inside that limitation, but it is not indicative of who we actually are. It's just a symptom of our condition, of the current condition of most of humanity, and we have nothing to be ashamed
Hmm.
of.
Yes. Yes. That that came with implants. Like the original shame was when they realized they were naked in the Garden of Eden. Right? This was like when all the storms came in and so I was like, "Oh, we're naked. We're so shameful." Right? Like that's yeah, go back to that ancient memory within yourself. Remove those distortions that are there. This is what reclaiming your DNA is about. It's really getting to like your ancient self and realizing that all these things that have happened throughout time, like nothing is actually separated from you. Nothing is, even the wars that are occurring right now, everything is connected back to us on a cellular level. Everything. Why? The eternal law of one. Again, we're all sharing the same air. It's the same consciousness that's keeping us all alive. We're all taking that in daily communion every single day through every breath. So, yeah, that's how the holographic universe functions is through that tether. That tether alone through breath is infused with the plasma crystalline matrix. Like
Whoa, okay. So can you say, oh, what does that mean?
it's it's a part of the holographic quantum field that ties all life and existence together, but there's many different levels of that. I see the plasma crystalline matrix is like almost like a living electrical current of plasma that moves through all things. It ties the air, it ties the land, and it ties the waters together. That there's no separation of this fabric. It's really the mother grid. I call it the mother grid, but it's the grid that keeps all living things together. Through the mother mitochondria of the planet and the mother mitochondria within our cells.
Mm,
Hmm.
okay. Is it fair to compare this to the element ether?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, it's connected through. Um, yeah, I would say it connects through all dimensions of your aura. And I almost feel like the ether is a part of the aura. Um, it's also a part of the astral. It's also a part of the causal part of the body. It's also a part of the Ketheric, the universal. These are all dimensional strands that connect in through our bodies and, ultimately hold that entire fabric together. But yeah, I say the crystalline plasma. It's a flowing essence. It does move through the crystal veins, which are connected to the ley line systems.
Crystal veins of the earth?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, because right, we're all like connected to these structures that uphold us all together here. But it's it's what sustains the higher evolutionary phases of the Earth's light body and our light body as well.
Okay. So are we receiving this crystalline plasma from the sunlight?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Hmm.
And that's why they
Hmm.
want to block the sun too, right? To
Hmm.
interfere with those codes.
Yeah. Oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so there's all that weaponry we have to work to transmute, but we do get small victories here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at least here in Florida, we're both in Florida. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we do see how there's certain winds that we get here that protects certain dynamics. Like we had the law passed so that they no longer can spray in the skies, the
Of course,
chemtrailing.
they're still doing it every day, but this was one of the first states to pass that legislation.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had this is why the masses need to wake up. People need to quit sleeping so much, and just like it's because they have so much comfortability. There's so much not feeling like they have a responsibility to any of this work.
Yeah.
Right? Like the people who are not talking, using their voice, using their platforms, using, just choosing to kind of turn off and be a drone. And honestly, this is what the hybridization programs with the Greys did to humanity. I mean, like we have sleeper cells, we have synthetic beings, we have soulless beings, we have people that have been just so hybridized and modified through needlecraft technology. Like they actually kind of can't, some of them can't actually wake up.
Yeah.
There's so much damage to the DNA, to the soul, that some don't even have souls. I mean, it's so the ones this is the repair of the human angelic DNA is so imperative on this planet that we awaken as many as we can that carry this and get them on to their path work of being soul embodied beings that actually walk with purpose and understand what this is about, what we're creating, where this is going. They need to have the full picture. If they can't have the full picture, they need to be connected to people that can help them see the picture. The vision holders of humanity are very important. People who can see into the future, the people who can hold the prophecies, they need to come forward and speak. We have to find ways to help this whole network of what we talked about, which is building these like future off-grid living communities where people can live the grid worker way. They can live the spiritual way on this planet, practice their ancient spiritual God's sovereign freedom rights, walk within the temples, become the stargates, you know, anchor galactic civilization here. We will find ways to do this. It's already happening. We're all like already a part of it, but you know, it's a huge task and there's nothing to worry about. There really isn't. We're all contributing.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's exactly what I would say is it's already happening, and if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, but I don't know what to do. I mean, you don't have to go out and save the world. That was never how it worked in the first place. You work on yourself. That's always
Hmm.
bringing it back to simplicity, right?
Hmm.
You work on yourself, you heal yourself, you metabolize your own shadow. Don't be afraid. Accept yourself, love yourself, and stand up and be who you are. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's nothing else to do.
That's the solution. Um, yes, 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 and relearning the new ways of New Earth, the new nurturing ways. Um,
Remembering those
uh-huh,
ways, right? Because the
uh-huh.
natural human, the organic human, when we can just like get out from underneath all our bullshit programming for a minute and a half, I still see lots of evidence that that human is still here within us and around us because, anytime no matter how often we've been programmed to think that we are the problem, and I know that there are a lot of human beings who are causing a lot of problems out there, but usually what happens is if there's a big disaster, or if there's a big storm, if there's something happens, what do you see people do? They come together. That's the first thing they do. They come together to help each other. They don't do it to get paid. They don't do it they're helping each other. They're being human beings. This is happening. And, all we have to do is start with ourselves. And I feel like we can recover and restore our template no matter what is against us. We always have solutions.
Hmm.
And, we're on schedule or maybe even ahead of schedule. And I would love to hear you talk about that a little bit more. I would love to hear you talk about what's happening on the world stage, what is really at stake. Because here's the thing, like, if we get stuck in politics, right left polarization, and all of this fighting about which side is right, we are completely missing the big picture here. If you don't like certain world leaders, or if you have strong feelings about that, you need to be able to like hold that in abeyance for a minute and a half so that you can like start to get a grasp of a much bigger picture that's happening here and understand that what we're seeing is a show, it's a play. It is curated, and we're going to have to start to really learn to see through all of that stuff and understand that what is happening is bigger than politics, it's bigger than nations, and that the wars that are happening are functioning on the multidimensional level as well. And I would love to hear you talk about current events in that light.
I would so love to. I am gonna probably have to jump off though. I'm so sorry. I have to go pick my daughter up from school. Um,
Well, maybe we can continue the conversation.
yeah, yeah, we can do another one. We can do a part
Okay.
two. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. As you heard, Indy and I quite literally ran out of time. We were just beginning to explore how her understanding of planetary grids and consciousness and current events intersect with what's unfolding on the world stage right now, when school pickup called and ordinary life reminded us that even in the most multidimensional conversations, we still have to exist in time. What stayed with me after this conversation wasn't any particular cosmology or theory. It is the recurring thread that surfaces again and again, whether we're talking about planetary healing or personal healing, collective awakening or individual awakening. The invitation is the same. It's know yourself. Know yourself. You, we are so much more vast than we have any idea of. Our path here is to face whatever we've been afraid to face, to heal what is ours to heal, and just trust that every act of courage and remembrance within ourselves contributes to something much larger than we can fully see. We each have a role to play here. If this conversation sparked questions for you, that's good. I think it was meant to. I really encourage you to go check out Indy's YouTube channel. Her work is amazing, and she's got a website. You can get one-on-ones with her. She does amazing healing sessions, and her book is an amazing tome, and she's got another one coming out and a third in the pipeline. I mean, her knowledge is just incredibly vast, incredibly deep, um, incredibly nuanced. And so she's a really remarkable being who, yeah, is doing her part here in the planetary healing and our evolution and return to what is natural, what is organic, what is real. Perhaps the real gift of conversations like this is not that they provide all the answers, but that they just invite us to expand the questions that we're willing to ask and consider things that may have been, previously beyond our ken. Thank you, as always, for joining me in the grace space. I'll see you very soon, next time. Walk in grace. You've been listening to the Grace Space. To amplify this field, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or share. Thank you.